Peace. Brought to you by Iron Phenomenal Unlimited. This is the Speak Your Mind podcast, hosted by the Queen, Shanice Gatewood Ali, and the God, I Be. Speak Your Mind, an open line podcast, delves into the week's current events, trending topics, and the social issues that affect Black people in America. Peace, peace. Welcome to the Speak Your Mind podcast with the Allis. Peace to the Queen. What's good, Queen?
Peace. How are you, King? How's everything?
Everything is good. So
That's what's
today
up.
is the God Day of March. You know, God is that righteous person who is actually being the sole controller of his universe. That's my aspect of God, but many other people have different views of what God is. But we're all inclusive on this channel, so everybody has a right to believe in God as they do. So today we have an excellent podcast for you. Today we're talking about prison reform and COVID-19. Peace.
Mm, wow. this is our eighth one. Wow.
Yeah, this is our eighth podcast.
We
So this
doing
thing is
great.
going. Yeah, we're doing pretty good. So as
Yes.
usual, we're gonna definitely read a couple different articles about current events. One of the first things I definitely want to talk about is the our
Mm.
governor Andrew Cuomo. Um, but it's not what everybody else think that I want to talk about with Andrew Cuomo. It's something else about Andrew Cuomo that he put in place over the last year. So I'm going to share my screen real quick. Um, okay, let me see. Okay, here we go. Can you see that, Queen?
Yes.
Okay, so
Which one we talking about?
okay, I got it right here.
Hmm.
Okay, so last year, a lot of people may not know that Governor Cuomo he put in place Executive Order 203, which is a New York State police reform and reinvention collaborative. So it says the background is on June 12, 2020, Governor Cuomo signed Executive Order number 203. The executive order states that this was created in response to the police involved death of George Floyd in Minnesota. Protests have taken place daily throughout the nation and in communities across New York State in response to the police involved deaths and the racially biased law enforcement to demand change, action, and accountability. The purpose of Executive Order 203 is to create changes in local law enforcement policies and strategies to mitigate police involved deaths and racially biased law enforcement. So, the different parts of the plan are this. The plan is supposed to be submitted by April 1st. And these are the different parts. Executive Order 203 calls on local government, police, and entity to perform a current review of the police force deployment strategies, policies, procedures, and practices. um, there needs to be plan development. After, in coordination of such review, the local government chief executive or any local government with local police agency must convene the head of the local police agency and stakeholders in the community to develop the plan. And the stakeholders, defined below, must be consulted with and allowed to make recommendations when creating this plan. The adoption and ratification of the plan, point three, is such plan must be offered for public comment to all citizens in the locality, and after consideration of such comments, shall be presented to the local legislative body in such political subdivision, which shall ratify or adopt such plan by local law or resolution as appropriate, no later than April 1st.
Hmm.
Okay, so this plan right here, I don't understand why a lot of people are not speaking about it, because if this community back plan is not in place by April 1st, then the police are supposed to lose funding for not adopting this, not creating and adopting a plan by this time. So this
Right.
is very important because a lot of people was out there protesting last year, the George Floyd protest, there was the Black Lives Matter movement, and there was all of these different things in place. But this is actual legislation that can help change the situation.
Right.
So
Wow.
on top of that, what's compounding this right now, what's making it extremely difficult, is the current things that Governor Cuomo is going through as far as the sexual assault allegations. Now, we're not trying to say that the sexual assault allegations are true or false, but what
Right.
we are saying is that if somebody is put in place over Governor Cuomo, who they may not say that this legislation that he put in place last year is something that they're going to go forward with, or they may take it completely off the table.
That's true. So what I have seen lately too is a lot of people have been saying that uh the the bill has been passed,
That's a
and
different bill.
that's a different bill.
Yeah, that's the George Floyd Justice and
Oh, that's
Policing.
the George Floyd.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
the federal law.
That's the main one I'm thinking about right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah. So speaking of that, yeah, go ahead. Add on about that one as well, though, because you know we
Well,
did a stream on that.
Right. So the George Floyd bill, if you go underneath congress.gov, and this is where a lot of our people need to start paying attention, go underneath congress.gov and you'll see the different type of bills that's on the table or actually being passed for domestic violence or police brutality or Asian brutality. All these different things is going on. Um, However, the George Floyd, a lot of people saying it's been passed, but before a bill can actually be law, it have to go past different seats. So you have the House of Representatives, if I'm not mistaken.
That's
Then
right.
you have the Senate,
Right.
right? And then it will go to the president. Once the president agree and put his signature on it, that bill is now law. So
Right.
right now, it's only passed through the House of Representatives. So that bill had not actually been is still on the seat. It haven't gone anywhere. It's just in the house. So what people need to really start informing themselves is don't be fooled so quickly and give big ups to something. Let's try to figure out how can we help get this bill passed all the way through.
Right.
Now, the bill that you're talking about, my king, um, I feel right now, I'm not saying it's true or not, but it's just pretty much weird that certain things are starting to come out now. Um, I hope and pray he is not a part of that because if I'm not
Oh, she blinked out.
he huh
Now you blinked out for a second. Go ahead.
he is Governor Cuomo is the one who put sex what is it uh,
Sexual
s- uh
assault.
sexual assault or sex harassment,
Oh yeah.
all these different classes in place. So I would hate for him to pass these things to have us getting these different type of trainings, and he's the one who actually is a part of. Either he is or he's not, we don't know. But I hope and pray that everything works out for him. That's all.
That's right. So, can you see the screen? No.
I no, I just see you and I.
All right. So let me share this again. All right. So next, we're gonna talk about our topic for today. Okay, this article right here. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, this article right here is mass incarceration, COVID-19, and community spread. In
Hmm.
2020, this is by the Prison Policy Initiative. And in this article, they said in 2020, a decades-long American policy failure, mass incarceration, collided with a brand new American policy failure, the mismanagement of the COVID-19 pandemic. After decades of needlessly locking up ever more people in jails and prisons, state and federal lawmakers now face a public health disaster if they were unable to decarcerate quickly. In this report, we show that the persistent overuse of incarceration, despite decades of evidence of its inefficiency and harms, has had serious consequences. Mass incarceration and the failure to reduce prison and jail populations quickly led directly to an increase in COVID-19 cases, not just inside correctional facilities, but in the communities and counties that surround them. Since the beginning of the pandemic, it was abundantly clear that the crowded and unsanitary conditions in Americans' prisons and jails would facilitate the rapid spread of the virus, putting incarcerated people and staff at serious risk. Once the novel coronavirus entered facilities, officials across the country ignored the threat for too long, perhaps imagining that confined populations would be too isolated from the outside world to contract the virus. But the boundaries between life inside and surrounding communities are actually quite porous, with staffs, vendors, volunteers, and visitors constantly flowing in and out of the correctional facilities. Um, Not to mention the frequent turnover and transfers of incarcerated people themselves. Because policymakers failed to take steps to prevent the spread of the virus, in prisons and jails, correctional facilities have topped the New York Times list as the largest outbreaks for months. Not only did officials do little to prevent the spread of COVID-19 within correctional facilities, they also did little to prevent the transmission of the virus from prison and jail hotspots to nearby surrounding communities. As a consequence, and as our analysis show, ignoring, downplaying, and distorting this systematic failure left communities exposed. So this is major information right here. What they basically are trying to say is that they were not paying attention to how COVID-19 was going to spread within the prisons. Now, this also speaks to Governor Cuomo as well, because he recently has been under the lights because of what they said that he did with the nursing homes. They said in the nursing
Mm-hmm.
homes, he downplayed the numbers of the actual people that was infected, and a lot of people caught COVID-19 and passed away in these nursing homes. So, these are the topics that we want to talk about today, but we definitely want to introduce our guests. So let me get this up here real quick. Anything else you want to say before we open up the guests, Queen?
No, well basically while you doing that, it's a shame that all these allegations and, all these different things is coming out on him now. It's really bad. I hope these things are not true. Um I it's always when somebody's doing something good, they try to come up with these type of these these things, I don't know, and it's really bad. I don't even know what to say behind it, because we on media.
Right.
We got to watch our words. However, we have some great guests that will also share their opinions on certain things as well. We have questions, we have more articles to talk about. um, if anyone would like to call in, the number is definitely will be up, because I don't see it up right now, but it will be up.
Right.
Um, so yes, please be respectful of everyone's opinion, because everybody have their own personal opinion. Either is right or wrong or differ. We still got to respect it. Um, we are here to agree and disagree.
Right. So now I want to introduce our first guest. This brother I've known for some time. I see him out there doing great work in the community. This is my brother, Darren Mack, the co-director of Freedom Agenda. Peace, Mr. Mack. You have to
Peace.
unmute
How are
yourself.
you?
Peace, peace, greetings. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Glad to be
Thank
here.
you. Yes.
Okay. So our second guest I would like to introduce is Rozalyn Shepard. She's a business and political analyst. Peace, Queen.
Peace, my brother. Thank you for having me.
Peace,
Excellent.
Queen. How are you?
Peace, Queen. It's what great and you.
Good.
So our next guest is a brother that I have learned a lot from over the years. This brother, we done worked on projects together. We was actually in school together. We did papers together. This brother right here, he's constantly in the movement, doing the work. And I see him and I definitely salute this brother. His name is Anthony Dixon, and he is the director of community engagement at the Parole Preparation Project. Peace, brother Dixon.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to share this space with everyone.
Thank you
Excellent.
for joining us, Peace King.
So last but not least, I definitely had a chance to have a conversation and chop it up with the brother. We basically had a pre-podcast yesterday. Me and the brother, we was traveling, going through a lot of information together. He definitely has a lot of information about health and wellness, so he will definitely have a great contribution to this channel. So I would like to introduce my brother, Harlem Sun.
This is someone I actually went to school with back in 2010. Peace King, how you doing?
Peace. Are you muted?
Yeah,
You're
you're
muted, Harlem
muted.
Sun.
Yeah, peace and light, everybody. I'm happy to be on the platform with everybody to share this dialogue on
Yes, thank you.
important issues that's plaguing our community. Yes.
Excellent. So So to start up, I know y'all heard the article that I read. What's your first reflections on the article before we get into any questions? Anybody want to start it off?
Please, you know what? My game plan was to set up. My game plan was to shut up, let everybody talk, and at the end say something, right? But I know I would be remiss if I just didn't lay this out there, and it's not even going to take me long. But in addition to what you just read about what he put in place, do you know that in 2019 he signed a bill into law, which was a prosecutorial misconduct bill,
Mm,
and that bill is the bill that would have started the cleaning of the prison reform pipeline.
Mm.
What happened with that bill that it was appealed and then it was no one heard any mention of it ever again.
mm,
Part of that I don't blame Cuomo for. I don't blame anybody for that. But the fact is that we can't expect our elected officials to magically erase our problems. People have to be involved. So if someone wants to appeal something, we have a right to fight back. And I mentioned at another time that there's a Pew Research poll that says 70% of the people in this country really are not concerned about criminal justice reform or the prisoners, and only 30%. And see, something like that with what's going on with the article you mentioned and also the prosecutorial misconduct bill, the fact that that could just be wiped away and quiet is due to the fact that the grassroots need to start representing their own needs and getting behind their elected officials. So I'll just leave that on the table. The other thing that you mentioned was COVID. As I mentioned to you, I do criminal justice reform, and I'm working on 2 cases of wrongfully convicted inmates. One was in the actual prison. Remember when Harvey Weinstein was convicted?
mm-hmm.
Right.
He took COVID in the prison with him. With one of the cases that I'm dealing with, he went in there, and the person doesn't have a spleen. So we just went like, oh my God, Harvey went in there with COVID. The other thing is that there's another case that I'm working on, and then there's also a video of an investigation that was done in these prisons. The conditions, some of them are in violation of the plumbing code. In one of the inmates' prison, there's 64 men in one dorm. They had them locked in there with no windows open. They couldn't go out for weeks. And these 64 men share 2 toilets.
Yeah.
I don't even like to share a toilet with one person.
Right.
And
Right.
64 men and 64 men share 2 showers. And the last part I put on the table is that the investigation that was done in another prison, the inmates have to walk through feces, to go to the mess hall to eat. Okay, and that's on top of dealing with COVID. So, yes, this is something that I've been telling people. Listen, we don't want to wait until these prisons become a morgue before we do something. And when you read that article, I was like, yeah, it's coming. But there's a national initiative that we have on the table that addresses all of this, which I'll get into later. I just wanted to put that on the table.
Well, I will say it's great that you brought some of that information to the table just now, especially the part about the 60-some people being in one dorm and using 2 toilets. Now, I have experience with incarceration, and I will tell you that this is more the norm than not the norm. So in these medium facilities where they have these dorms, you have a lot of facilities where you're seeing many people in the dorm where they're right next to each other, and they're basically in like cubicles where you could go right over the cubicle and the person is right there on your right and your left. And then some of them are double bunked. So you have all of these people in this room. How are you going to social distance in a situation like that? You really can't.
Check the
Anybody else,
plumbing code.
anybody else want to comment?
Make sure people check the plumbing code. That's a solution to that problem, to make sure these prisons are in compliance. If they're not,
Okay.
it's illegal.
Okay. Wow. Thank you, Queen. We definitely going to check on that. Would anybody else like to comment to that? Wow, that's
I,
deep.
I would like to chime in on that. I feel that prison reform is very important, being that it's geared towards us. But the conditions the sister mentioned, we can't treat the symptoms unless we get to the root of the problem. And the root of the problem is that 13th Amendment. So the conditions the sister mentioned correlates and mirrors the plantation, like things that we had to go through. So I feel like in order to get these conditions changed, we also gotta change certain laws that's been in place for so many years before we could address the symptoms. We got to get to the root before we could get to the symptoms. Even though even though the symptoms require immediate attention, we got to get to the root first. This is a form of white supremacy, and we know that white supremacy refines itself over the years. So what our brothers and sisters and folks that's in prison is facing is nothing but a reflection of the plantation.
So could you expound a little bit on that 13th Amendment? Because some people may not have about the 13th Amendment. Yes.
No problem. The 13th, I'm gonna read it out to you guys actually. The 13th Amendment states, Section 1 of the 13th Amendment states, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except as a punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted shall exist within the USA or any place subject to their jurisdiction. So basically, slavery never was abolished in 1865. It was hidden within the 13th Amendment. And by it being hidden within the 13th Amendment, this is why we see that our Black and Latino brothers and sisters are high commodity and prime targets for the prison industry. And
that's true.
And that's the only way slavery can exist. And I know we'll probably touch on it later on as it's going on, but that's why it's a stock on Wall Street. The prison industrial complex has a stock on Wall Street. This is all about financing and money. And it'll be hard to reform their money. You know? So we got to really attack it, like the sister said, from the grassroots. It starts with the people. We got to get behind some of our local officials and really put their feet to the fire. We vote them in. We can't just go off of promises and words anymore. We got to put their feet to the fire and make them accountable for what they said they would do for our communities. And that's all I have to say on that particular situation.
So thank you so much. So this is when we mention Black agenda. These are the things that we need to add on to the Black agenda. The more and more my husband and I is doing these podcasts, is more and more things is starting to come out. And some of us don't even think it's a problem or issue, because remind you, I never even knew about what the sister brought up. I never knew about that because I wasn't in that type of situation. I remember when I went through Central Booking years back, they only had one toilet there. So I would not even think in prison how you got to walk through, that just messed up my spirit on that one. However, these are the things that we need to bring to the table. These are the things that we need to sit down and form Black agendas, because when we go in front of the politicians, we know what we're talking about. When we go, it's not just us asking for can you get my garbage moved? These are just simple things. They say yes to that, whatever. But the problem, and like you said, Harlem Sun, we got to get to the grassroots. We got to get to the core, and because that is the solution. Remind you, a lot of these politicians will talk with you, yes, but if you don't have a solution, they're not really going to rock with you like that. Trust me, I went. Right. I went to them and talked to them about bullying with the kids and how the kids is committing suicide. And he's like, what is your solution? So with that being said, we got to have the problem and we got to have the solution combined, so that way they could actually take up the time to talk to us. So
May I interject something on a political?
Hold on 1 second. Just let me read this. Real quick stat so that we can move on to the conversation. I will go right to you. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so this article right here is in the Lower Hudson Valley newspaper, and it basically is showing the numbers and what the numbers in the New York prison show. It says the overall statewide positivity rate in New York is around 6.5%, according to the governor's office. In New York prisons, the positivity rate is 16.5%, according to the Correctional Association of New York, an independent organization that serves as the monitor under state law. Now, if you understand health disparities, correct? First of all, the coronavirus, the positivity rate, the normal positivity rate in the population is less than 1%. New York's positivity rate is 6.5%. But then if you have a prison population with 16.5%, right? This is 16 times the normal rate in these prisons. So our
Mm-mm-mm.
people are just sitting ducks in there. So go
Mm-hmm.
ahead, Rozalyn.
Well, I know there are two other people here who
Right.
haven't had a chance to chime in, but it's the it becomes a question of, do you let a point slide before you interject? And when you were speaking about the importance of talking to your elected official and telling them things, one of the things that is needed is political education. What is political education? Political is it's just narrowed down to three things. You ask a person, do you know that your elected official works for you? 90% of the time, the blood is going to drain from their face because that's a concept they never heard of. What the elected official who works for me, they usually look up to them as though they're God, or some really person to be seen as higher than them, and that's okay. And I think we've got a lot to bridge. We 100% of years behind, and we have to look at things from a standpoint of what gaps do we need to fill. So that's a gap we need to fill. So I asked that question: do you know your elected official work for you? No. Okay. Then when people who say elected officials don't do anything, I'm not voting, they don't do anything. Well, if you didn't know that your elected official work for you, have you told them what you need? No. So how can you say they don't do anything when they may not do anything for you because you didn't say so? They may be busy doing the work for somebody who did speak up, and that would
Mm-hmm.
change that narrative. The next question is, do you know what you need? Do you know what your community need? And when we focus on these three things, I know we're talking about a Black agenda. It's if we don't know what we need in our communities, else is going to know? If
That's
we
right.
don't know how to articulate what we need in our community, who else is going to do it? And
That's
so
right.
we have to be able to identify the gaps and just fill them. I think we're doing well. We bridged the gap, being hundreds of years behind. We have doctors, lawyers, everything. It's our civic responsibility. That's all we're doing. I've had people come to me, I'm a Black nationalist. No, you're not. You're not doing anything any differently than the Asians and, Italians. This is our civic responsibility to understand and learn what we need to do in our community. So I just wanted to interject that.
So one
Thank you.
person that I know knows how to speak to these political officials is my brother Darren Mack. I have seen him through the Close Rikers campaign and through the other organization that he used to work with, Just Leadership, actually at a town hall speaking about the things that is going on with this Close Rikers campaign. So if you want to add on to that, Mr. Mack, come on here and speak your mind.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
I'm
Yeah, a
mute.
lot. Uh, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot was said. Touching on COVID-19 in our communities, COVID-19 in prisons and jails, and what the New York elected officials are doing about it. Like you said, like I know firsthand, like many people on this panel, what it is to be incarcerated. I served 19 years, 11 months, and
Wow.
28 days straight throughout New York State's jail and prison system. And that's why, I've started advocating and organizing with directly impacted people because, one of the elected officials that I heard say that, those closest to the pain need to be closest to the power. And, those closest to the problem should be closest to the solution. But we're furthest
Mm.
from the power and resources. And that's why, we believe that directly impacted people, can have a direct impact because of the work that we've been doing. Yeah, there's so much to say about like what's happening inside jails and prison, which I like to actually describe as a carceral system. and it's like an octopus, and it has a lot of tentacles. The law enforcement, police is a part of the carceral system. DAs, officers, prosecutors are part of the carceral system. Jails and prisons is a part of this carceral system. And like the brother Harlem Sun had mentioned earlier, we need to really think about like getting at the roots of these problems of mass incarceration, rather than and also tackling the symptoms with like the entry services and things like that. But getting at the roots of the problem, like actually, which I believe is the disproportionate distribution of wealth and resources and opportunities in our society and community. And I'm sure the brother Dixon, he's been on the front lines around those issues, around dismantling this carceral system and these new Jim Crow practices here in New York. So I'll just like leave it at that and let the brother Dixon chime in.
Come on, brother Dixon. Being quiet. That's not the brother Dixon I know. Give me some information here.
All right, I get on the gate. Okay. So I've been listening to everyone, and I really think there's a real worth of resource here from what I'm hearing. Everybody on here is a asset to defining what the problem is. I think that one of the things that we need to do when we define problems, like I heard Executive Law 203, if I'm quoting it correctly. I didn't even know the citation until IB mentioned it to me the other day, but I was reminiscing on when I first heard about the act, period. I think that one of the things that we need to do is, like when I first heard about defund the police, I think that narrative was well and good, but I think what we really want to say is not just defund, but reallocate the funds, especially inside of our communities where you got like tanks and military armor that's been donated to police from off the battlefield fighting against other nations, that's now brought those resources into our neighborhoods. I can understand that. And I think too that too much weight has been put on the problem of this racist system on law enforcement. I don't think they can carry all of the blame for what's wrong in America. And I don't think it's right just to correct that and think that's going to solve the racist problem. I had one of my teachers told me that if you want to find out what America means, just strum the word America a few times and you will come out with the words, I am race.
Wow.
And so this whole country is founded upon that. I'm not even sure if we was to change the 13th Amendment, well, that would change hearts and minds. The laws was changed inside the 60s on Jim Crow segregation, but that was a revolt because hearts and minds was not changed. This recently, the bail reform law was changed, but hearts and mind was not changed. People that do abolitionist works, we do not believe that reform is the issue. Just dealing with one part of the problem is the issue. Although we do realize we have to deal with parts at times. And we do also believe in incremental change. But if you deal with reform, we've been dealing with like around 200 years of reform in this nation, right? Abolition work deals with more than that. It deals with actually disrupting the system. It deals with dealing with systemic issues, I heard earlier, not just reform, just moving around the furniture, but keeping the house in place. No, we need to get rid of the house. When the Constitution was even built, it was said, we the people. We the people wasn't us.
That's right.
In fact, hidden away inside the Constitution for tax incentive was the Southern slave owners said, we want to count Negroes as part of our taxes so that we can get lower taxes. So they said, let's count them 3/4 of a person. That was in the Constitution. We the people. So we the people definitely didn't include us. And so we really need to I think one of the things that we need to deal with in our thinking is that we're guided by white people that are for us and coming up with the solution. or people that are further from the problem. Sometimes it's us ourselves that are really not sitting down with the IBs and the Macs and the other people. And what normally happens is that there's a meeting that excludes us, and we invited after the meeting as just imagery and poster children. That needs to stop.
I agree. I agree. See, one of the things that was real important about this executive order 203 was that he insisted within the order there's actual language that says the community has to be involved with the police reform. Right. So when they put this plan in place, they had to have several sessions where the community was able to speak about what they wanted in their community. And then that had to be added to the comprehensive bill by April 1st. Now, the issue is, I don't think a lot of people in the community even know that this executive order exists. So have they been part of these town hall meetings? Have they been part of what exactly is going on? And if you have these different agencies or different people that are a part of it, are they even speaking for the people? Because if the people are not involved, how are you speaking for the people?
Well, if you're asking that question, this is where I back out of the whole conversation. Okay, because, it's not that I don't see this as, I don't understand systemic racism. I do. I understand, what has been going on since the Reconstruction era. But it's simple to me. Things can't be done if you show up. It's only being done because people are not showing up. And to me, what I find that I think the conversation, and this is just my opinion, should be, we've talked about, of slavery. We've talked about systemic racism. We know there's a pipeline and that we've been talking about that forever. The one thing I believe that if we talked about this, and this is what's missing. Yeah, it was missing we the people from the Constitution. We need to put it back in the Constitution. And I don't mean literally by having it written, but understanding that we are part of this. And we the people must understand that if we don't represent ourselves, we will not be represented. Period. So that's how these things can happen. For a long time, we didn't have, this country is run on representation. That's why we elect officials to go and do their job. So if these things were able to happen because we didn't have representation. And then you got to understand what the representation goes through when we did start getting representation. I sat in meetings with the head of the Black Caucus who said every time we figure out the rules to the game, they change the game. So now they send them on a wild goose chase trying to understand the rules. And then you got to understand this. You have people who say, oh, I'm running for office. We don't like what they do. Let's vote them out. Then you get in there as a freshman and you don't even know the lay of the land. You still got to work across the aisle. You still got to work with the ones that are in there that you may think are not doing anything. It's just not that simple to do. Like you could just run for office and magically create everything. I don't usually engage in these conversations because it's just more of the same to me. But when we start, the great thing about this conversation is the fact that we are willing to engage and listen to each other. Because I come on a conversation to try to find out something that I didn't know that can broaden my scope. And I think that should be the focus, broadening our scope. Right. We talk about the problem, but let's broaden our scope in terms of how to address this. And what I mean by that, by doing that, then we're able to see, and I guarantee you, and I'll start with this without going into a whole lot more. When we start talking about the fact that every other community knows the power and the responsibilities, the civic responsibility. I used to represent a UN diplomat, and he trained me, and he's training me to be an ambassador. And the UN had 8 Millennium Development Goals, and what they told me was that they were going to the pre-kindergarten students and teachers because they want to teach them kids, this country is your country. They want to teach them their civic responsibility so that it becomes natural. It's not even something that you feel that you have to have a Black agenda or you have to have this. It's just what comes with the territory of being a resident in a community. This is just the way the world works. And I think when we start seeing that this is just the way that this country works, and we're just doing our civic duty, and everyone has that responsibility. I think when we start sending that message out, then each and every person, because where I am, what I do is I go into those groups on Facebook that'll go to a party but won't come to a town hall. And with my political events, I put it right in there. Hey, all right, get your political party on, include that too. So, and like I said at the beginning, I have an event that's a combination of business, politics, and community and entertainment, So I'd like to stop there. And I think that's for 2021. We're in the 21st century, in the 21st year of the 21st century. So on every 21st day I celebrate. But we got to change the dialogue. And we bring that dialogue that's going to bring about an awakening. And the awakening is to something that has been in existence from day one for every community. We're just doing what every other community do, taking care of our civic responsibility. This is your country, and you've got seed coming on behind you. If you don't represent yourself and your family, you will not have any representation.
Right. Wow. Thank you, Queen. That was a handful. That you gave us something to think about as well. So we definitely want to be respectful for everybody's time, and we do want to continue on with questions as well. But that I do want to say Tuesday night, Rozalyn and myself will be on another podcast on living behind the mask of domestic violence. She will be breaking down some other things as well. So thank you again for being a part of today's topic and discussion. But King, what you want to do? What you want to speak on another article or get somebody else's opinion?
Okay, so first I just want to say that the reason why I decided to have this panel today, well, myself and my queen decided to have this panel today, is because we wanted to engage with people that were actually out there doing the work. So that's why we invited Brother Darren Mack, who has been very initial in the Close Rikers campaign with the organization Just Leadership and with his new organization that he has out right now. And also Brother Dixon, he has been very instrumental in parole reform. So we have people out here that's actually doing the work. We just had to highlight the problem because unfortunately, a lot of people, unless they're involved with the issue, they do not know the problem. Right. Like if you look back, if you go back in history, this is some history that Brother Dixon actually taught me about the 7 neighborhood study. The 7 neighborhood study was done by the think tank in Green Haven in the 80s, I believe. Right. Wow. And in that study, they showed how 85% of the prison population at that time was from 7 neighborhoods in New York City. Right. So that's a major disparity. If you have these lower income neighborhoods that have actually been used to feed the prisons, and these prisons are in places where the economy is basically being funded by these little prisons. That's the only big industry in those different communities. And this information, it enlightened me so that I said, you know what, I got to go out here and fight against this. So the way I fight against this is I work in the Alternative to Incarceration movement for a nonprofit organization working out of Manhattan Criminal Court. And I work with people every day to try to keep them out of jail. So, these are the things that we are doing on the ground right now to try to stop this situation. However, more people have to be awakened to exactly what's going on so that we can get more people to add on to the movement. All right.
Right. And letting them know that they have a responsibility to represent themselves and to represent their community is because there are people like us doing the work. And we've been doing it. But I just think that change is going to come when we change that, we'll give that dialogue that people understand it's their responsibility.
So I want to get Brother Dixon in here and Brother Harlem Sun in here. I got something for you as well right after this. But this right here, I want to read so Brother Dixon can comment on this. After spending more than 3 decades behind bars, the 60-year-old was dealing with the death of a good friend of COVID-19 at another prison. Johnson had witnessed the near impossibility of social distancing in Fishkill Correctional Facility in Dutchess County and the lack of protective gear given to an imprisoned individual as he nursed himself back to health after dealing with a likely case. I was concerned for my own life, he said. I was to the point where I felt like when I went to parole board in October of 2020, I was saying if I don't get granted parole, there's a possibility that I may die in prison due to COVID-19. Johnson did get parole and was set free from the confines of the medium security facility in December as New York prisons began to see a spike in the number of sickened by the coronavirus and deaths. So I just want to get your take on that, Brother Dixon.
All right. Thank you for that insightful commentary. First of all, there's over 30 people that died in New York State correctional facilities since the COVID-19. And there's hundreds of them that survived that now have complicated health issues. That blood in those individuals now dying situations is on the hands of the governor. Just think for a moment. In our society, we witness individuals being killed on videos. And only because the videos are around, the cell phones, do we know what's happening. Right. What do you think is happening in the red Republican part of the state where there are no cameras? There are no cell phones. The atrocities and the brutality, the whipping post syndrome that is going on, where the only time that white people see us are when we in green. That part of the state, right? You got to wrap your mind around this whole situation, and so when we think about COVID-19. We're talking about a governor that has shirked his responsibility to care about Black lives. Not only Black Lives Matter in death, Black Lives Matter in life. And the most marginalized people are the people that are behind bars, the least of these. If you're not caring for them, then you're not really governing our people. And how are you going to care about us in our Black and brown neighborhoods outside where you don't care about us on the inside? Black lives matter both inside and outside of prison. And so he has a nursing homes on his hands now. I heard that it's like 9,000 like individuals that died that wasn't reported. We don't know how many that may also be true inside of corrections that haven't been counted. We don't know.
Right.
And so COVID-19 is target specific for people that have compromised immune system and may be fighting something else. And elderly people. We have a bill out called the Fair and Timely Bill and the Elder Bill. The Elder Bill says that individuals that are 55 and older who have been in for who have been in 15 or more years should be eligible for a parole board interview. It doesn't mean they're released. It means that the individual goes up for an interview by the parole board. It puts them there. And if, like we used to say when we was on the inside, if you've been doing the work, you're ready.
Right.
So that's the solution. Governor Cuomo is one of the top 4 governors inside the nation to grant clemency. That's out of 50.
Wow.
He's on the lowest 4 to grant clemency. We have a bill on the table right now, the Fair and Timely, that would answer COVID-19. Right? That it would pit individuals that are target specific for this virus up for eligibility. Also, the Fair and Timely. It says individuals should be granted a parole board release opportunity based on who they are today, not who they were yesterday. That means that not the nature of the crime or when the person was 16 or 20 years old should be the determinant factor on whether they are released or not. They can never change that. And by the way, the judge already sentenced them for that. That's why they went in and did the time. But it's who they are today. What if we, black people, did that to white people and held them accountable for the atrocities that we have been under for the last 400 years and we wasn't forgiven? What if we did not believe in redemption? What if we did not believe people can change? They have the audacity to try to judge us by our worst act in life and say you cannot change. Once an inmate, always an inmate, right? And so I get real serious when I start thinking. I was in prison for 32 years. When I went inside there, perhaps prison was the best place for me, because I was not an asset to my community by no means. I can say that now. But after 15 years, all they was doing was beating a dead horse. We have individuals inside of prison right now that are ready to come home. They got their AS degree, they got their BA degree. Some of them have even went as far as getting their master's degree. A couple of them have even got their PhDs. They're no longer the same. They went in there as kids. When they was young, they thought as a kid. They did as a kid. They understood as a kid. But when they grow older, they put away those things. And so our bill deals with the answers, right? If the governor, if the senators and legislators, period, want to answer to de-incarcerate, well, those bills answered. And by the way, Governor Cuomo has not closed down no facilities. The only one who has closed down those facilities is Matt, IB, myself, and others that are not coming back. We closed the facilities down.
That's peace. So I want to get my brother Harlem Sun in. So I just wanted to show him something before I get him in here, about something that I spoke about just recently, because a lot of people don't know about this 7 neighborhood study, and this study was groundbreaking. So in this study, it says the study revealed at the time, as I said, 85% of the state's prison population was Black or Latino, and that 75% of them came from 7 neighborhoods in New York City. The study revealed at the time, right, that the 7 neighborhoods in New York City were Harlem and the Lower East Side in Manhattan, South and Central Bronx, Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brownsville in East New York and Brooklyn, and South Jamaica and Queens, right? So I know my brother Harlem Sun is from Harlem. Like, what do you think contributed to a lot of people getting arrested? Because Harlem is one of the 7 neighborhoods. What do you think contributed to a lot of people coming from the Harlem neighborhood and getting arrested?
I don't like to put the blame all on a white man, because we got to take some of that blame for ourselves. We got to take on some of the responsibility. I would say what led to a lot of people getting arrested in Harlem or entering the street life would be economic castration. When there's economic castration, educational castration, housing castration, nutritional castration, it leads people to do whatever they have to do to survive, fend for themselves, and to provide for their families by any means necessary. Because rule number 1 in life is self-preservation. So some of the outside entities that played the role in not just Harlem or the 7 neighborhoods, but throughout the Black neighborhoods in America would be the crack import agency, which I call the CIA. And by them flooding our neighborhoods purposely with these drugs, knowing that that we was economically castrated, we would do these things. So to me, that's what led to folks being arrested. This is what led to the high incarceration rates currently today. You know, people not having the opportunity. People like myself who was blessed to, I was blessed to have folks that was in the streets telling me not to do these things. Yo, you play ball, do that. You know, you're a smart dude, do this. This is not for you. But those same brothers that was telling me that was also telling me, yo, I ain't got no way to make it out here. You know, I'm castrated economically. I got to do what I got to do for my family. So they provide the means, just like Tupac mother said, and all eyes on me. Son, they going to give you everything you need to destroy yourself. And that's what they did,
Mm-hmm.
purposely setting up these situations for us. So that's what led to a lot of people, especially in Harlem, being incarcerated or arrested. Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, I like to add on to that a little bit. Like what was mentioned about some of the causes of the problems and the seven neighborhood. Those incarcerated men at in the Green Haven think tank, they like identified those neighborhoods and they identified the problems. And like one of the things about it, those same neighborhoods were like historically under resourced,
Mm-hmm.
and you had what they call crime generated factors. That's the term that these men coined. Crime
That's right.
generated factors, and because these communities were historically under resourced, and you have what developed was what they call dropout factories or the school to prison pipeline. Um, and freedom, like the closed records movement, when I started doing advocacy and organizing all this work, those seven neighborhoods were the neighborhoods that we did the organizing around. Because most of the people that were incarcerated or experienced Rikers Island or had family members that experienced Rikers Island came from those seven neighborhoods. And I've come from one of them. I come from what I call Bushwick, Bedford Stuyvesant, and
Mm.
most of the leaders and the advocates that came from these neighborhoods were advocates in this movement to close Rikers and to advocate for against the carceral system. Like right now, Freedom Agenda, the organization I'm a co-director of, is a member-led organization, and we dedicate our work to organizing people and communities impacted by incarceration to achieve decarceration and system transformation. And one of the major system transformations we want to do is divest from this punishment system, meaning police, jails, prisons, DA offices, all those things that feed this punishment system and redistribute those resources back into those communities that's been impacted by this carceral system.
So let me ask you a question,
Wow.
Darren Mack. I know that you're part of the Close Rikers campaign. I would like to know if you could give us an update on where we're at in the Close Rikers Island campaign, and the second part of that question is: are the borough-based jail alternative a good alternative?
Yeah. So even I've had like discussions with even like people who's running for um, political office here in New York City. This is one of the biggest political um, elections of the year. There's going to be there's a race for the mayor. There's a race for borough president. There's races for 35, I believe, out of 51 city council seats.
Wow.
And I've heard some candidates, some city council candidates, speak about Rikers Island, and a lot of them don't know what they're talking about. Some of them think Rikers Island is a prison. Some of them think that Rikers Island is one jail. There are 10 jails on Rikers Island. When I was there was over 20,000 people incarcerated at Rikers Island.
Mm.
And in the beginning of the closed Rikers, like near the beginning of the closed Rikers movement, there was like a $500 million set aside to build another facility, another jail on Rikers Island. So, but because of advocates like myself and so many others that's been impacted by Rikers, we stopped that. And not only did we stop that, we got the mayor to commit to closing Rikers Island. So for those survivors of Rikers, we came to a consensus that, okay, if we close Rikers today, there's still facilities in the boroughs. Like in Brooklyn,
Right.
there's a facility in Brooklyn called the Brooklyn House that's like a stone thrown away from $1 million condos, right? And so we wanted one is close Rikers Island and address conditions of confinement, because most of our members, most of our leaders that from Freedom Agenda, not people that been to Rikers or in the jail system for like a misdemeanor. A lot of us have serious violent crimes. So, and we know that it's going to be a struggle to get people out of the system, everyone out of the system. We're not going to have zero incarceration tomorrow. It's steps. So we want to. So the plan is to shut down all 14 jails across the city, because you have one near the Bronx, you have one in Manhattan, you have one in Brooklyn right now, and you have one in Queens that's been closed for a long time because it's been decrepit and outdated. And Brooklyn was grandfathered because that was built around the same time as Queens. So go from 14 jails across the city down to just 4. 14 jails, the 10 on Rikers and the 4 in the boroughs, down to just 4. From 14,000 beds across the city down to 3,300. That's what we got the city to commit to, and addressing conditions of confinement. Because every summer at Brooklyn House, we would protest in front of there because of lack of air conditioning, and every winter we protest there because of lack of heat. So the Brooklyn House is bad as well. The Tombs is bad as well. The conditions that at the Barge, which is a boat, is bad as well. So right now, we have the plan that's on the table right now, which we want to struggle to improve, is to close these 14 facilities and replace the 4 that's in the city to improve the conditions and to decarcerate. And then once that's done by the middle of 2027, then we can work on decarcerating these 4 facilities and redistribute those resources that save from closing Rikers Island back into our community. So that's kind of like in a summary. It's a little more complicated and a little more attached to it that we could probably delve into some other time, but that's kind of like the plan. But right now, 2027, Rikers is going to be closed. We're going to address the conditions of confinement by replacing these facilities with a borough-based plan, so people will be closer to the courts, closer to their families in a borough. And that's just like the first phase of this work until we get to zero incarceration, hopefully.
Wow, he said 2027. Whew.
Yeah.
It's
So,
an
Rozalyn,
ongoing fight.
Rozalyn,
I'm sorry?
what's your take on that?
Well, first, I love hearing work that's outside of my wheelhouse, because that's how I get a greater understanding of the scope of this thing that we're dealing with in terms of criminal justice or any other topic. The first thing that came to mind, and I think he answered it, was like, okay, so where does the population that are guilty of these crimes, that aren't being railroaded into mass incarceration goes? And when you say about the number being 3,300 beds there, that's the only thing that comes to mind, because there are people who deserve to be in prison. And will that be enough for those who deserve to be there for the crimes that jail for the crimes that they commit? And that's the only thing, but I think it's a great work, Derek, and I really appreciated hearing that.
Great. So Queen, you
Hold
got
on.
some questions?
Wait, someone have his hand? Yes. Go ahead, King.
Yeah.
Speak on.
I just want to speak to again the abolitionist framework, prison abolitionist, I should say. Our framework is, we deal with stuff from a systemic issue, prevention, which would deal with the crime generating factors, a crime derivative items, but we also deal with intervention. And we're not saying that individuals should not be held responsible for their problematic behavior. I rather call it that than criminal. And what we are saying is that to deal with them should not just be to isolate them. These facilities should have cognitive treatment services and wraparound services. Just to incarcerate them is the punishment paradigm. We believe in healing. We believe in second chances. And we don't believe in just isolating a person and putting them back inside the same pond and expect him or her to have the answers when nothing was done while they was in. So if we're going to call these facilities correctional facilities, we need to start doing correction.
Correction. Good stuff. That is so true.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just want to say one thing. Like, the people that's in the jail system, the overwhelming majority, like I think it's like between 80 and 85%, they haven't been convicted of a crime.
Right.
They just accused of a crime. And they remain there. Most of them remain there because like the judge remanded them, or they have a bail so high that they can't afford to be bailed out. Yep. So like, you remember the Khalif Browder case, right?
That's right.
Khalif Browder, 16 years old, was on Rikers for 3 years saying, I did not do it. I did not do it. Oh, just plead guilty. Oh, then you'll go home today. Like, no. Once I plead guilty, I'm going to have a felony for the rest of my life and be legally discriminated against in this new Jim Crow society. And then ultimately, 3 years went by. He was a solitary confinement, got beat up by the police and everything, and by the correctional officer, and they just dropped the charge, and he went home. And because of that trauma he went through, he took his own life.
Right.
You know?
Wow.
So like what Dixon said about, we need to think about these people, people who are incarcerated, neighbors, our brothers, our sisters, our mothers. We need to address those issues as well on the outside in our community, and address the issues on the inside as well in the system.
Well, I like the fact that you guys address it holistically. That's what's important, because there are tentacles to this that you don't recognize until you kind of get involved in it, that we could go in and it can take, but addressing it holistically is the way. And in terms of healing, and then it goes into, because I'm in communities with people who have felonies, who are living with their girlfriend. These are men that feel less than a man because they don't have their own place and they're under her roof. It's just a whole lot of other things, but who are going to college to get their business degrees. And, so then you got to deal with expunging the felonies off their, so many things. But I think, again, back to the root, definitely when you get to the root and you start putting that salve on the root and, getting people to understand that we have to address this, or this needs to be addressed from a standpoint of, being holistic, because these are human lives.
Right. So I want to chime in really quick with Harlem Sun yesterday. He made a statement. He said, which was wow. He said, how is it that right now a he could be a she, and we got to address the he into, we got to address him as a her now. But when it come down to an inmate, they wanna constantly call him or her an inmate and don't give them a chance to show proof that this is not who they are. So how is it that we have training, we have sensitivity classes, and when
she broke off for a second, but I understand what she's saying. We have all of these sensitivity trainings when it comes time to deal with the LGBT community, but when it's time for us to deal with people that are formerly incarcerated, there's still all this language where people are being, treated in a foul way. Go ahead.
Because they speak up. That's why.
Go
They
ahead.
speak up.
Shanice.
right. So that's what pretty much what B said. And when they gave me the class, the course, it was like, you can't say certain things to certain people. But me being a Black woman with, I guess, a body, and when somebody come out their mouth to me, where's the sensitivity part for me, as a Black woman? So when because they always ask you, where's your comment? When I mentioned my comment, it wasn't no feedback. Nobody didn't say nothing back to me. And I'm like, okay, at the end of the day, someone would say, is that your hair? Or is that your bottom part? Or whatever it is. And I highlighted all of that. Nobody said nothing back to me. And I found it was funny. But
Before
did
you go to
anybody
that,
want to say?
right? I definitely want to get Harlem Sun his take on this, and also the holistic part that Rozalyn brought up. But what I just wanted to comment really quick is that when I was in Hale Creek Correctional Facility for the KSAC program, right? In that program, we had 2 Black counselors in the dorm that I was in. And these men they was really instrumental in showing me a career path, right? They actually influenced me to go and get involved with an organization called Access VR, and to use them to get my KSAC training. And once I went and got my KSAC training, I went back to college so that I could get my bachelor's degree and then my master's degree. But I seen one of the brothers that was the counselor in the dorm when I came home at an event that was out here in Harlem. And I spoke to him and I got up and I thanked him for the things that they were doing within the dorm and so forth and so on. Do you know that later on he posted on Facebook he was happy to see that the inmate was able to change his life around? He still did not see me as a man. Even though I stand before you with a master's degree, my own businesses, change my life around, working with people that's incarcerated and formerly incarcerated, and you still want to reference me as an inmate. So that Harlem Sun.
And well,
Well,
before Harlem Sun,
mhm.
hold on one second.
Yes, yes. Mhm.
So that made my husband extremely upset. So what I did was I told him, you need to write him a letter and let him know where you stand as a man. Because we, as they say, we only gonna allow people to treat us. My motto is treat people as you want others to treat you, right? So we got to show someone how to treat me, how to treat us by addressing something that hurted you. Because now when he do it again, you allow it to happen the first time. So this is when my husband did write the letter and he did mention how he felt behind it. And that's what we have to do. Now when we see the person again, he is to address me as X, Y, and Z and not inmate. So that's my point. But Harlem Sun, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Um, Everybody made valid points, great points. My views on a lot of what we're talking about somewhat differs a little bit. I do agree with a lot with what's being said, but my approach is always from are we trying to fight for equality or are we fighting for liberation within the system? Once I feel like we answer that question, then I feel like then we can further proceed. Yes, I feel like there's an injustice done to our brothers and sisters in the prison system, and some things need to be addressed and changed with that. But I also understand and understand that throughout history, black liberation does not come from white legislation, and that's
Mm,
a proven fact. So my thing is, I'm not fighting for equality. And the things that we're facing, the game, like somebody mentioned earlier, the game is always different with us. So yes, I feel that the steps that the brothers is taking, everybody is taking to get these brothers out, to get them rehabilitated and get them back on track due to the fact of the system taking their freedom away from them based off of the systems and the conditions that was created for them. I feel that um we must, how can I say this? I feel that in order for these things to change, we, and I might sound like I'm all over the place, but I'm really not. We can't address outside issues and entities until we fix the disconnect between us, meaning a black man, black woman. Once we could communicate with one another, then we could take the next steps needed into addressing our situation within our community. And yes, it's a long road and is not going to be easy, but I just feel like if we trying to fight for equality within a system that wasn't designed for us, we not going to get too far. They're going to give us a little bit, but really
mm-hmm.
change it up on us at the end. So my thing is fighting for liberation will liberate us out of the prison system. It will liberate us out of economic castration. It will liberate us out of educational castration and health castration. I'm just
Mm.
being honest. That's what it is. And that's the only way I see us really moving past everything that we're facing as a community.
I agree.
Wow, thank you.
So I just got something in the chat. Um, Brother Darren Mack said that Brother Dixon could probably elaborate more on the language. And in tandem, as soon as he said that, Brother Dixon put something in the chat about the language and the dehumanized language. I definitely want him to touch on that because when he taught me about that, like terms like rehabilitation and re-entry and all of these terms that assume that there was something before, right? Like you saying re-entry. Like, how are you going to say somebody is re-entering in something when they never had entry in the first place? Or how are you going to say that you're rehabilitating somebody when they never been habilitated? So, Brother Dixon, please expound on this. Expound on this a little bit. Are you there, Brother Dixon?
Yeah,
Okay.
he's there.
Yeah. I was trying to put together my thought for some more to put inside the chat, but it is consistent with our narrative of the downtrodden and the marginalized to not use the word the re's when we have never been accepted. How can we re-enter society when we was never accepted? How can we integrate into something or reintegrate to something that we was never integrated to? And so these terms, even the term restorative justice, is a misnomer because we never had justice. And it bespeaks like a premise of being an aboriginal motto, restorative justice. We didn't come up with that. And I think one of the last gifts that Eddie Ellis gave us was a term he used was human justice. I don't like the word criminal legal system. Criminal, you already started off wrong. I'm a criminal. I thought I'm innocent to proving guilty. And when you say the criminal justice system, again, justice is something that's not part of our experience in this country, right? So I would prefer to call it right now a legal system, right? And so what that does is challenge today's system to make it the way they say it is. And when we use it, we saying that it's already correct. And something can be legal, but wrong. Slavery was legal, but it was wrong. So just to call it a legal system is not letting it off the hook. And so one of the things that I think IB is like putting his hands on, and Eddie Ellis did too, and you must understand the consciousness of Eddie Ellis. He was a former Black Panther who was incarcerated. So he brings with him the narrative of the 60s inside a prison. And his thinking is on a conscious level from the gate, which most of us who came from the street in prison, we wasn't already civilly engaged like he was. So he questioned and he deconstructed these terms that was being put forth by the adversary of the oppressors as being misnomers and mischaracters of the narrative of the 60s. You would never find somebody during the 60s talking about reintegration. We was talking about integration. You see what I'm saying? About restorative, we was talking about justice. And so what had happened, these terms make us think that we have arrived someplace that we haven't. It avoids our past and annihilates it as not even true. And the other thing is that it perpetuates that we alone need to change. We need to be reintegrated. It was like the Matrix. You need to go back in, right? You need to be rehabilitated. You need to re-enter. But the system itself is excused. There's no culpability for the system that needs to be changed.
Right.
And so it actually is like a way of doing something, a reform, without addressing the systemic issue that's already built inside society. And so I would ask you not to believe the hype and to take off the re-terms and just call it what it is, integration. Some other terms, transition. Like in my job, I don't have a re-entry job. I got community engagement. I made sure that term was deconstructed. And who came up with these terms? The Second Chance Act, bipartisan support of both Democrats and Republicans, who cannot admit that these things was not done, because to say otherwise, you have to now go back and change back those crime generated factors. So you must say the re's so that you will not go back and change what needs to be changed.
Wow.
Agreed. So
Wow.
now
Definitely agree.
we're going to get to the solution phase, right? We definitely highlighted the problem. So now it's definitely time to highlight the solution. So what I say as looking at this from a scientific perspective is there's various ways that we can attack this problem, right? The first way that we have to attack the problem is through the crime generative factors, right? This is pre-incarceration. The way that I'm attacking that problem is I started a mentoring organization for the youth ages 16 to 24 called Mentors Against Drugs and Guns Through Experience, right? So we could get at-risk youth. If you look at books like Countering this Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys, which was written in the 80s, he highlights the issues that our black males have with the educational system, which starts the school to prison pipeline. So if we can get the youth at those transitional ages when they're coming of age and we can give them some new information from our own experience, then we can influence them. Now, the second piece that we have to work with is the people that are currently in no. First, it has to be with the courts, right? The people that's actually in the courts. Does the court system look like them? Are there judges? Are there people on the jury panel? Or is it an inclusive system, and is it a fair system? We have to deal with that aspect. The next part is the actual prisons themselves. Are people having long sentences? Are they being let out on time? All of these different factors with parole reform, and then the um the final aspect that we have to deal with are the people that are coming home from these traumatic experiences in prison, right? How do we deal with them? How do we help them um so that they can become employable and have a living wage, right? And to be able to serve their families in the way that they weren't able to do before they came home. All right. So these are the things that I want y'all to speak about now in the solution phase of this. But we're going to have a brief intermission. And then when we come back, we're going to speak about the solutions. All right. So bear with me for 1 second.
Greetings. My name is Shanice Gatewood Ali. I am the CEO and founder of We Are Phenomenal Women. We Are Phenomenal Women is an informative, empowering group that connects, educate, and support women who have experienced domestic violence in the past or could experience in the future. Coming into our world, our core podcast, our Speak Your Mind podcast with the Allis. Thank you so much for being a part of this with us.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Who was that?
But that was just a commercial highlighting the great work that my queen has been doing with her organization. We Are Phenomenal Women. We Are Phenomenal Women is a nonprofit or organization that goes out and advocates against domestic violence in the New York area. Do you care to speak on that real quick before we go back to the solutions?
Whew.
Excuse me for a second, IB,
yes.
and everybody else. I'm sorry, I gotta go. I gotta do some shopping with the wife
Okay.
and take care of the family thing. Y'all already know how that is.
Before you
Enjoy,
go, just say the things that you're currently working on and how people can get in contact with you.
Right, they can go to the Parole Preparation Project website, and they can get involved with the things that we're doing as far as our bill. Our legislative day is coming up in March, and you can get in contact with me at a Dixon Parole Prep ny.org. That's a Dixon at Parole Prep ny.org. And
I'm
I'll
so
send
sad
an
he's
email
leaving.
back. Promise.
I had a question for you that, oh my God, I've just been waiting to ask you if I can. Do you have 1 minute or you have to go?
Yeah, I think
He
the
has to
wife
go.
will let me ask a
I'm
question.
I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you.
He said she'll let you. She'll
Oh,
let
she
him
will?
answer.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I
Yeah,
appreciate that. You mentioned that you have fair and timely and you have that legislation, correct? Is it
correct.
legislation? I've been working on an injunction, and the injunction is to um, release prisoners who have served the maximum or their mandatory time thus far. Also to put on house arrest those who are in for nonviolent crimes, to free up the space for social distancing as well, that I'd like to talk to you about, because we got this initiative. We're planning to file it and get people behind it. And when I heard what you have, and I think coupled together would make a really, really meaty bill.
It sounds like something I'll be able to speak to somewhat. I really applaud the work that you guys are doing. Thank you for this conscientious podcast. I always feel stronger when I'm in these type of spaces. I'm real proud to be Black. It's like magic. You know, we're making it normal.
One last piece. Nikki Haley did this in South Carolina, and they freed up about $18 million. So I'll talk to you more about that too, because it's going to free up money for the states. But I have it. Is it Anthony? Oh, A. Dixon
Anthony,
Parole at ny.org.
right. And
For
you can also find me on our website as well. They got my other information there too. Parole Preparation
parole
Project.com.
preparation.
And
Okay, I'm gonna
you'll also
get.
find me at Release Aging People in Prison campaign, where they have a whole lot, because that's our sister organization.
I'm gonna get it from the Queen. I couldn't write
Sounds
anything
good.
down fast enough. I'll get it from them. But I definitely will send that over, because we got talking points, media, everything. And before I press the button, I'll always like to get a lot of eyes on it and see what else we can connect to it to make it stronger.
Wow. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
And thank you
Thank
as
you.
well.
Yo,
Thank you
peace,
for
Thank
brother.
being
you.
a part
Thank
of
you for coming on. It's always a pleasure.
salute.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Mrs. Dixon. I really
You're
appreciate
so
that.
very
Peace, my
welcome.
brother.
I'm sorry, I'm a little bit tired.
I
Okay.
totally understand.
Make sure y'all get some fruits and vegetables too.
I know that's right.
Yes, yes.
Definitely top of
No
the
quick
list.
chill here.
That's right.
All right,
Peace,
bye
brother.
now.
Peace.
Bye.
Thank you. So We
Peace.
Are Phenomenal Woman is an organization that basically want to educate our people on domestic violence. A lot of our people believe that it's only about physical violence, and it's not. It's so many different other forms of domestic violence. You got verbal, mental, you have spiritual, you have financial, you have different ways. Different topics. We also speak to our men too, as well, because a lot of men go through domestic violence as well. Family violence. We had somebody that really came and spoke about family violence with his mother and how she would put him down as a little boy at the time, and now he grew up. He's a man. He's going through these struggles with his mom. So We Are Phenomenal Woman is more educational. Soon we are working on our own shelter, and that way we could shelter at least 25 single women. If we could do more, we will do so. But that is our goal coming up really soon. I've been speaking to different people who are giving me the opportunity to have my own shelter, or maybe housing women in a hotel. So that is my goal. That is my mission. We doing great work. I've been on Here and Now, New York of what is it? New York of the Week.
New York one.
Uh, we have fed people. We have given out clothes. We have done so much. Like, my life is not boring, and my husband would definitely let y'all know. There's no yeah, we stay busy. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on that.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to highlight we are phenomenal women, and because y'all doing great work in the community, which is part of relieving those crime generated factors, because the family is very important. The family is the foundation. And if you don't have a strong family with healthy relationships, then that's one of the reasons why a lot of people get arrested. So next I want to
Absolutely.
pass it on to my brother Darren Mack. So you could talk about some of your solutions. What are you currently doing, and where do you think that we should be moving forward?
Yeah, thank you. So some of the solutions, like our freedom agenda, our strategy is decarcerate, defend, divest, and redistribute. Decarcerate, closing Rikers Island. Defending the human rights of people that's going to still be in the system by addressing conditions of confinement. Divest. So currently, the Department of Correction, their budget is like 2.4 billion a year, and right now, for every person that's incarcerated, there are two COs to every person incarcerated. They have the largest staff. DOC had the largest staff, jailing staff, than any big city, any in the country. And so what we want to divest from this system of punishment and redistribute those resources back into those communities to address those crime generating factors that we mentioned, to address the historical underfunded, under-resourced policies that these communities that have been impacted by Rikers Island for decades. And that's like addressing, investing in housing, investing in violence interruption, investing in mental health services. Right this year, actually, next week is the beginning of city budget preliminary hearings. Actually, it begins next week. So, and there's going to be a hearing actually on March 10th about, the Department of Corrections is going to be begging for more money, but it's going to be public testimony as well at the end for the public to say, you have $2.4 billion a year. We need housing. We need healthcare. We need investments in education and mental health services. So you could actually testify, and I'm going to be testifying. So there's going to be hearings, different types of hearings. Even the NYPD is going to be begging for more money, and they budget is ridiculous,
Brother Wiz,
yes.
I'm sorry,
So
I didn't mean to interject. I didn't mean to interject or cut you off. Where's the hearing going to be located?
it's virtually. You could actually. I'm gonna put
Okay.
the link, and you can share it with folks. I'm gonna put the link in the chat, and you can share it with folks, and you can sign up, and you can
Great.
sign up for. It's going to be hearings going for the next couple of months on different issues. Department of Corrections, NYPD, criminal justice, mental health, all these different issues, and you can sign up and testify. That's the action that people can take. Sign up and tell them, like, no, we need to stop investing. We need to divest from these systems of punishment and invest in the things that you care about. So I'll share the
Okay.
link and share with the audience.
Yes, please keep us informed with that information. I did have some questions on COVID, but I think we went to another direction today.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, but it was a good conversation. So next, I would like to have Rozalyn. Tell us about what you think should be the solutions to the current issues. As far as the intersection with COVID-19, the prison system, and just so forth and so on.
I think what I think would be the solution, to the way to express it is to kind of touch on some of the things that were said today that I thoroughly appreciate. I love dialogue, and I wanted to just touch on some things that Brother Harlem Sun said, and I felt where he was coming from. And then when he said, Black liberation is, it's not going to be had by white legislation. And I just want to say that it's not, to me, it's not white legislation. When we realize that this is our civic duty to represent ourselves, regardless of the obstacles. It's like if we're sick and we need to get to a hospital, and we're not allowed to go into a hospital because of the color of our skin, and we know we either going to die If we don't get some help, we're not going to just allow that and say, well, forget that hospital. I'm going to walk away. We're going to do everything in our power, knowing if we don't have anywhere else to go and this is the only alternative, that this is what we're going to do. And that's what it's like with legislation. All of the things play a part, and it's to other people's benefit for us to that's the purpose of doing these things, to make us feel like no, that's not for us. Legislation is not for us. These things are not for us because perhaps, we don't see them play out the way that they typically should. But the fact that they're in place is what is a good thing, because that's what you can use. When you look at the races in Georgia, when Stacey Abrams ran for governor and Brian Kemp didn't step down, what she didn't say, well, see, here we go again. This is the same stuff we go through over and over again. She didn't say that same thing that typically people say. She slapped them with a lawsuit. Every time he did something, it stung them. It's like, you just have to do that. But you have to have the laws in place first. And this is why it's so important to vote, everyone. And don't allow anything in your life, anything that anyone ever does do to you, to make you think that the legislation is the key. And look at the legislation that Martin Luther King gave his life for, that we're benefiting from today. That if it wasn't there, what will we have? So I just want to share that with you for food for thought, because everybody's journey is different. And I understand the path, that got you there. And so that we can begin to share this with everyone. The importance is to vote. They have just signed into law a voter registration bill that is going to suppress the vote across the board. And it's not about us and them to me, because it's a humane thing. Because if we have things going on in our communities that we do to one another, we can do it to other people as well. And so that's why I come away from that us and them mentality. It's a humanity, because if we were in leadership, what in the world would we be doing? And if you look at it like that, you remove yourself from they're doing this to us. It's about us representing. And I just want to say one last thing. The thing that I'll never forget is this, and this is a model for me. When AIDS came in and people were dying, and it was just like COVID, when the minorities were dying and stuff, nobody, cared. But we have civil unions between gay people now, because the gays started an organization called ACT UP. They knew what their rights were, and you were not going to take their rights away. And they won. Okay? AIDS, by and large, got addressed because of them. And they won, because they were dying. And they were like, we're not going to have this. And if we don't do something about it, nothing's going to be done. The other thing is, it went from AIDS being addressed all the way to now, to where they can get married, because that's what they wanted to do. And that's why I say, don't ever let anybody take you. We all have a right to, in our communities, to what we want and the kind of life that we want to live. That's everybody's right. And there's no system in place that can deny you of it. People will, but the system doesn't. And if there's a law that denies you of it in the system, everybody has a right to address that law and say, nope, takes away my civic rights, and we want this law changed. And people say it does, and you just get it voted out. So that's what I wanted to share in terms of making things better. I saw your list that you talked about transitional and information. I think that it's geared towards the things that you're doing and each and every person is doing, and that's what I appreciate about this. I think what also needs to come into play is an understanding of the playing field. If we're gonna play on the playing field, you gotta understand it today. The dialogue to me about what happened back then and what they took away has nothing to do with anything, because you cannot be stopped from doing what you need to do. If we have 70% of the people in this country who do not care about people in prison, and there's 30% who do, then the 30% need to open their mouth and do something like the gays did when they were in the minority. And that's what's missing. And so people spend a lot of time saying they did this, they're going to do this, they're not going to do this, are the people that are really not aware of what they can do. And that's the awakening that I want, if we come away from this meeting and you can take back when you hear people say, they're not going to, you tell them it's not up to them, it's up to us. We have to make them do it by knowing our rights, and knowing how to work with our elected officials. So that's what I want to add.
I could chime in?
Please do.
Okay.
Hold on. So,
okay.
Harlem Sun, it's all on you. I definitely want to hear what you got. What's your solutions? I also want to hear about the holistic health that we were talking about on the phone the other day. Some of the things that you're doing with the sea moss and so forth, and the juices and all of that. So definitely touch on all of that. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. Before I address the solutions, I do agree with you, sister. I agree with you. That we do have the power, and it's not, like I said earlier in the podcast, it's not just the white man. We also have to take blame for ourselves also and step up. Mm-hmm. At the same time, the enemy that we do deal with does not understand doesn't understand reform. So the thing is all right, how do we maneuver within this though? And that's the thing that I feel that our people do lack. Instead of just saying a white man this and that. Now, as far Dr. King did put his life on the line, and this is where it ties into the system getting in the way. When Dr. King was presenting that civil rights bill, that was strictly for black folks, and I don't got to go through the history of what our ancestors went through at that time and frame when Dr. King was presenting the civil rights bill. Mm-hmm. But one thing that the president would not do was sign the bill unless one word was changed within that civil rights bill. And the one word that they had to change in that bill in order for it to get signed was the word Negro, and change it to minority. And because by them changing it to minority, now the groups like the gay folks that you mentioned can say my civil rights is being violated. All the people that stood on the sidelines while our ancestors got beat, tortured, and everything. So once again, the system always going to have his hand in some way, somehow,
Can I say something to that? And I know, and if not, that's fine.
And,
the bottom line is, what's the end game? And right. The end game, if other groups are helping, and I understand what you said by people who stood on the sideline and watched while we did it, but maybe we were supposed to be the one that opened up. See, there are other facets of life that I'm not going to get into. It's that if we get off on, I look at it this way. If a person has to sacrifice and suffer and go through this, it's just like and then one day when they were suffering, their family kicked them when they were down, and their family didn't understand, and their family didn't get involved. But then when they became rich and then their family was hungry, they're going to say, oh no, you can't eat because you didn't help me when I was down. It's all in how you look at it. The bottom line is we got it done. And what do we do to build on it? If other people, we can't get off on that negative. We got to build bridges. So now they needed it and they accessed it and it worked for them. Build a bridge with them. So if we come into that type of dialogue, if we're always looking at what the few things that were not right, as opposed to understanding the power of what was done, if we focus on the power, that's when we're going to get more done more quickly and dragging less baggage. I'm in total agreement with you, and I thank you for the dialogue. I just wanted to share that, just another way to look at it. If one day you ever, because I've never been in your shoes, I haven't been on your journey, so I wouldn't know. But I just want to share just another perspective on it. It's the power. Look at what was done, and let's stay in the power.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Agree. I believe the positive energy will always prevail. It's just getting everybody on one accord to do it.
And one by one, we do it. Look what happened just now.
Hold on, sister. Let him go. Let him go.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I believe the once we get all on one accord, or a good majority on one accord, then change will definitely come. The positivity will always outweigh the negativity. As
Right.
far as solutions, I feel that the same way we welcome home celebrities from coming home from jail, whether they was good for the community or not, we still people still praise them and welcome them in as if nothing, happened. We need to do the same thing to our brothers and sisters who don't have names. We got to live by the word Ubuntu. I am because we are. So when somebody come home, we got to welcome them in. We cannot judge them based off of something that they did, like we said earlier in the podcast, something they may have did when they was younger or 5 years ago. We're not the same people we was 2 days ago. So we can't hold them accountable for that. We got to help them. We can't talk down on them. And this is what we do in our community, which ends up allowing them to fall back into the same cycle that got them into the position in the first time. So the solution is basically unity. That's what's spelled in community, you know? So we got to have that in order to change the situation. And the solution is, like I said, we have to look after one another. We have to help financially. We have to look back at the past, because the past does play a role into the current future. I mean, into the current times that we in now. If a lot of our people or a lot of the youth do not understand Black Wall Street, Durham, North Carolina, Rosewood, Florida, they don't know these things. But if we teach them this and get them at a young age and tell them these things, maybe we could prevent them from falling into the hands of the system.
There you go.
Nowadays, our children is really a reflection of the music, and the music is detrimental. It vibrates on the lowest frequency possible. Think about it. When we was growing up, we was a reflection of our music, in our era, our time, or whatever. Now this music is controlled by the system, Jewish system, and our music is the only detrimental, disrespectful music right now. There's no positivity coming from our music. Hip hop supposed to stand for higher infinite power, healing our people. It's not doing that right now. So we must get these kids now at the youngest age possible. We cannot say they don't understand. Kids do understand. They're way more advanced than we are now. So the solution now is talking to these young kids, giving them some hope. They don't see no hope. I talk to young kids all the time, but I have to meet them on their level to an extent, to grab them in with something that they like and twist it around to bring in the information that they need to hear. So that's the solution with some of these young kids coming home. Some of the adults that's coming home, 30s or 40s, some folks are stuck in their ways and you can't change them. But for the youth, that's how we're going to have to attack them, and that's how we're going to have to get them, because the system is teaching their kids from birth.
Right.
We cannot let the system teach our kids. And as far as, I just want to touch on something that was talked about earlier. I know we're talking about solutions and things, but a system will never reform its money. The prison industry makes millions or billions of dollars off of incarcerated folks, especially Latino and Black folks. This is what they do. Is so many major big companies that's has a hand within the prison industry. They have a stock on Wall Street for it. It's money. The system will never refine this money, reform his money in any kind of way. They're not going to mess with their money. We don't like nobody messing with ours, so we know they ain't going to let nobody mess with theirs. They might give you a little bit, but they ain't going to give you everything.
Right.
So my thing is, once again, we could try to maneuver and play chess with them. That's what it is. This shit is chess. Excuse my language. It's chess. And once we master that, then every solution, every problem that we have mentioned on this podcast will be solved.
We got a caller.
Okay.
Wow.
Caller, state your name, where you at, and speak your mind. Peace.
My name is Brother Mark Maxey, and
Peace.
Peace, Mark.
thank you. I am one of the founding members of the Coalition for Parole Restoration. Our mission was to assist people in prison in obtaining parole release and to assist our formerly incarcerated persons and their families. Our social justice vision, it was the empowerment of oppressed people by educating them to take control of their destiny. And how did we do this? We did this by conducting parole preparation workshops all across the great state of New York. And with that said and done, I want to also make a comment. Someone mentioned one of my mentors, Mr. Eddie Allis. And Eddie Allis taught us that our goal and our mission is to inspire the next generation of advocates. And I'm glad to say that his goal and his vision was not unaccomplished. When I see my nephew, Brother God Ali, Brother Joseph Ali, it just fills my heart. And also all of those who are speaking on your panel, because language is so important. And I'm sorry, dear brother, that this person who saw part of your journey still chose to use that same language of terming inmates. The word should have been, is I'm proud to see a formerly incarcerated person turn his life around. And so
That's
we
right.
still have a long way to go in terms of changing the narrative.
Mhm.
And also, many, many years ago, 20 years ago to be exact, I went around with Brother Ricardo Howard and also Terry Williams. And we bombarded those town hall meetings for those candidates running for the mayor race in the year 2000. And we asked them a question. How would you use your office to support community-based programs for those who are coming out of the prison industrial complex? And so we must be a part of the voting process, but we also must learn to hold our elected officials' feet to the fire when it comes to these issues. I'm glad to say that I was also Senator Bill Perkins' prison liaison person. And with that, we held workshops and where people can get questions, answers pertaining to the prison industrial complex and the issues of their loved ones in prison. And so in closing, I'm glad to hear Brother Mack and also Brother Harlem Sun and Sister Roz Shepard, who introduced me to Hillary Clinton when she was being nominated on the floor many, many moons ago. So she has a long history in political activism, and I'm proud of the work that she is doing today and look forward to hearing her with Sister Shanice Ali on the issue of domestic violence. With that, I say thank you so much, Mr. and Mrs. Ali, for bringing this conversation to the forefront. Because as we speak, some of my criminal justice colleagues from 25 years ago have now reformulated and come together to form the New York State Prison Response in regards to COVID, because we understand that there is no social distancing in prison. We understand that both in those who are incarcerated as well as those prison guards are affected by COVID. So this is another reason why folks like attorney Claudette Nurse, who was out of the, she was out of the program, the Prison Justice Program, and the Prisoners' Rights Division of Legal Aid has now come out of retirement, and some of my other prison colleagues have come out of retirement.
Awesome.
I'm
Wow.
glad to see some young people that are now involved. Keep up the good work.
Thank
my
you.
brother. Uncle
Wow.
Mark, always a pleasure. I love when you call.
Word.
Definitely
Love
give some
it.
insight. And this brother right here, I'm not even gonna lie. This brother is the great connector.
Yes,
This
he
brother
is.
connects people across all different platforms, especially in the Harlem community. What this brother, man, like ever since I've known him, he's been giving light to people that are in this struggle and people that who are doing great work and connecting them with other people that are doing great work and
All the
also
time.
connecting them to forums where they could get their information out to the people. So I salute
Absolutely.
this general right here. Salute, Uncle Mark. Peace.
Salute. Peace. Thank you.
Thank you,
So,
Mark.
so it's funny. I'm so happy that Uncle Mark did mention COVID and the social distancing, because that is one I could try to get one of my questions in. What's your thoughts before a person come out of prison? Should they be isolated from the general population and get tested before they actually come out? Because when they come out, they just let them out, and they come out, they probably have COVID or contracted it or whatever the case may be, and come home and give it to their family members. So is there something in place for that? Could we talk about that? What's your thoughts?
I have a meeting at 3, and I just
Okay.
have to sign off. And I just want to say thank you to everyone.
Thank you. Peace, quick.
I enjoyed everything that you were saying. As you see, I tried to engage with everyone. Maybe that's
Right.
another show. All right. God bless.
Peace.
All right. Peace. Bye.
Okay, so before we close out, I just want that one question, because I did have a few questions, but we went off and started talking about other things, which was very enlightening. Certain things we always want to have forums that people are taking something out of it. Certain things that I did not know, I was learned, I was taught today. But I just want to know, what's your thoughts on that, and what can we do to help that situation or put that in place before a person come home? Could they be isolated first from everybody before they come home and or get tested? What's your thoughts on that, Mr. Mack?
Um, oh,
Oh, okay.
as far as somebody coming out of prison, I'll be honest. If I was being released, I would not want to be isolated anymore than I have to, especially as a free person, free man. But
Mm-hmm.
due to the circumstances that we in now, I'm sure that a process that probably should happen would one be before they as they're approaching their release date,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a month prior to them release or 2 months prior, whatever, approaching their release date, there should be some form of nutrition that is taking place to combat any virus that they may have within them on their way of being released out into population back into society.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like within that 2 week isolation, because I know the food and access to nutrition in prison is a little different than outside.
Mm-hmm.
So
A
I feel
little.
like within those
A
two
lot.
weeks, I feel like in those 2 weeks that they should be detoxing. It should be a detox program that is set up for them within that. Because in my opinion, COVID doesn't go away in 2 weeks. I know people for a fact that have had it for longer than 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So I think within that 2 weeks, whether they have it or not, it should be a detox program put in place within that 2 week program and 2 week phase to
Mm-hmm.
release any toxins, any other viruses they may be having on the inside. So when they finally release after 2 weeks, it'll be, shouldn't be any issues or threats towards anybody else, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Thank you,
I can
Mr.
speak
Mack.
a little to that. Last year when this pandemic hit the city, you know, well, when I was working with Justice Mission USA, we sent a letter to the mayor demanded that they do several things to address the conditions of confinement, the pandemic that was happening inside New York City jails specifically, and on outside of the communities where many of people incarcerated come from. And
Mm-hmm.
and one of the things was that testing and
Mm-hmm.
PPE masks, be distributed to everyone that comes in side of the city jails,
Mm-hmm.
especially in Rikers Island. We also was
Right.
calling on to decarcerate, to release people who like have city year sentences. If you got 8, 9, 10 months in, 11 months in, they should just let people, do their time or some type of program or something like that home. And within the
Right.
transition out of the system, they should be testing. They should have they should have a discharge plan to provide immediate access to care and treatment, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and to also accessibility to the vaccine if people choose to take the vaccine. So it's this.
Mm-hmm.
So like several things need to happen at the same simultaneously at the same time. Addressing the conditions of confinement, with testing for
Mm-hmm.
everyone, PPE acts, and a discharge plan to get care and treatment. For people come transition out of the system.
Wow, thank you. Yeah, because a lot of people who's coming home, they probably contracted it and they just sending them out, and they affect the whole family, and that's how another um that's when some more people die. We trying to prevent it at all means. So my husband and I, we did some research this morning on the different on statistics on who is passing away inside of the jail system. So that was one of my questions. I had to get one of them in. I'm sorry. I did all this research and writing up stuff, and nothing was asked or answered. I do want to also mention this another one you can answer if you don't. I know we're about to get off soon. What's your thoughts on the question? Like, should the prison system had taken better safety measures with the staff coming into work? Like before I go to work, I have to go through the COVID screening, and I have to make sure I'm good. They, if I have a fever, stay home. If I don't feel good, I would say I don't feel, whatever the case might be that I have to go through. And I just work in a shelter system. So in the prison system, that's totally different. You're always interacting with people. I don't always have to interact, but just tell them, listen. But who wants to go to work sick and get everybody else sick? I understand people want their coins, but at the end of the day, stay home. I'd rather stay home, and that and more lives being, you know, here or yourself versus you go in and then people is dying. So I think all day, Mr. Mack, taking better safety measures now in the prison system.
Well, it wasn't by they just like decided to make the decision to take better safety measures. The
Mm-hmm.
city and the state had to be sued.
Mm-hmm.
People, advocates on the ground had to advocate and organize and mobilize. We Freedom Agenda did a march to Gracie Mansion in December when the COVID-19 infection rate was spiking
Mm-hmm.
inside of the city jail, and we did a march with survivors of Rikers Island, their family members, different organizations to bring attention to this issue. And what happened was we got some media coverage around it, and the elected official Alexander Ocasio-Cortez
Mm-hmm.
had put out a statement like, listen, what is the city doing in order to prevent the COVID from spreading and helping the people that's coming in and going out so they don't spread the infection. So
Mm-hmm.
she released a inquiry around that forced the system
Mm-hmm.
to respond. So
Wow.
so different things were happening since then to like address those issues, but we still say it's not enough because
Mm-hmm.
it's just a lot of things that need to happen simultaneously that I mentioned earlier about people getting tested more, making the vaccine available, and those communities where most of these people come from and that got hit the hardest by the pandemic, it needs to be more resources put into to build up the public health infrastructure.
Wow. Thank you. So are they wearing masks now? Like the okay. Because I
Yeah,
was gonna
folks have
say,
masks, but But sometimes the masks get dirty after, if you get one mask a week, that's not enough. It get dirty, or you might lose it, or and I'll say this: that it's a lack of transparency of what's happening inside jails and prisons. So we don't really know unless we hear from phone calls from people from the inside.
Right.
We hardly don't know what the system tell you. It could be, it could be worse than what they're saying. So and that's the other thing. We also call for more transparency.
Okay. So do you think we could get together, put up our funds, and order some masks and like ship it to or go to and deliver it? Like, what is your thoughts on that?
They're not even letting people, the family members, to visit people incarcerated right now.
Right.
And
Right.
I don't know. Like, someone reached out to me about that too, like donating masks. And we don't know if that we receive it. It probably stop at the door and either give it out to the staff.
Ah, right. You're right. You're right. You're right. The only reason I brought that up is because when we went to the women's facility, we had bags of stuff to give them. We gave them sanitary napkins. We gave them shampoos. We gave them so much. Even we gave stuff to their children because it was around Mother's Day. And we wanted to make sure that they got it. As we came in, we was bringing our bags. We had at least 15 bags worth of stuff. So that was a blessing. That's the only reason why I thought of that. Mr. IB. Okay, I don't see you, my brother.
I'm here. I'm here.
Okay. What are we doing now? Are we gonna close out?
We're gonna close out. Everybody just give their name, their organization, and how people can get in contact with you, and so we can keep the conversation going. And if people want to work with your organization or buy your products, Harlem Sun, just plug your stuff right now. So go ahead, Darren Mack, start us off.
Yeah, so you could contact me at dmack@urbanjustice.org. That's DMACK @urbanjustice.org. Or you can go to our website, freedomagenda.org, and you can find more about our work. And if you directly impacted, especially if you directly impacted, you experience jail and incarceration in the prison system, or you have a family member that's directly impacted, join, you become a member, join or support, Freedom Agenda.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, that's peace. Oh, we got Harlem Sun back. Go ahead, Harlem Sun. We can't hear you. You breaking up. We can't hear you. You muted. Go ahead.
Yeah, I
There you
missed
go.
I missed everything you were saying. My connection had went out on me. I heard
What?
you saying mention your organization, things of that nature. But after that, I missed everything.
Yeah. So
Well, we recording.
Right.
Yeah.
How can people get in contact with you? How can people get your products or whatever so happen?
Okay. Currently, I didn't get a chance to even mention that part because me and the sister was in dialogue with each other. I have a business called Core Juices. I do juices and smoothies. Within my juices and smoothies, I use water from the Healing Springs from Blackville, South Carolina. If anybody's familiar, it's on Indian Reservation. I believe in an alkaline-based diet. So that's what we provide. We provide all natural fresh fruits from the farmer's market, if not the farm itself, or from a local supermarket that's out here who provides great fruits and that's no pesticides and things of that nature that's sprayed on there. I use herbs called sea moss. I use sea moss, which is an algae plant. I'm sorry, not an herb. And I use bladderwrack. Bladderwrack is very important for the lymphatic system because the lymphatic system is the sewer system of your body. So if you want more information, you can find that on Core Juices. I have that page on Facebook. It's Core Juices. And my personal page is Harlem Sun, as my name is on there. And yeah, you can contact me in that way. I'm available anytime. And as far as getting a product, I'm local right now. I'm working on shipping because I have a lot of family and friends back home in New York that would love to get more of my products and things of that nature. So yes, I appreciate you. But yes, right now I'm local and I do drive all over South Carolina. It's not a place too far for me.
That's
So
peace.
even Charlotte, North Carolina, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. My brother Darren Mack,
Thank you.
your organization. Salute to you for doing the work that you're doing and continue
Yes,
doing
sir.
the great work. And my brother Harlem Sun,
Yes, sir.
continue to serve people with those great products because health is wealth. That's what they say, right?
Absolutely.
Health is wealth.
Absolutely.
So we
Absolutely.
definitely want to be the most healthy we can so that these disparities don't affect us as much on the front end, right? So
Right.
we don't have to worry about when we're incarcerated or whether we're in the wrong community. We got to always worry about our health and do the best we can to obtain optimal health. So with that, I say
Absolutely.
peace to my brothers and thank you for coming on.
All right. Peace.
Peace. Thank you
Peace.
so
All
much.
right.
Okay. So that has been the last that's the end of that. That's the end of this stream. That's the end of this topic. Thank you for everybody who came out. I'd like to send a super salute to my brother Anthony Dixon. I want to definitely send a salute to um, the sister, Rozalyn Shepard. Thank you for coming on and adding on. Definitely thank you to Darren Mack, my brother Harlem Sun, and to my queen, Shanice Gatewood Ali. Thank you for always being the excellent co-host. And we'll definitely be back here next week at 1 p.m. with the Speak Your Mind podcast with the Allis. We'll be talking about current topics and, stuff that affect Black people in America as always. So I thank you and I salute to everybody. Let me shout out the people in the chat. Salute to Jakisha Breland Kirkland and salute to Mark McPhee for calling in. Yo, salute to everybody. Oh yes. Oh yes. Before I go, I definitely got to talk about the 10-year-old that was, I guess he was murdered in on what street was that? Let me see if I can find it real quick. Let me see if I can find it. Who has it up? Okay. I think the sister has it up. Let me see if I can show this real quick before we go. Boom, boom, boom. Community response. Okay. So right now, they're currently having a community response rally. It started at 2 p.m. This is on 134th Street and Frederick Douglass Boulevard. I believe there was a 10-year-old child that was found beaten, and I think he was dead inside his household. So if you can get down to this rally and add on, the community response rally, as I said again, is on 260 West 131st Street at the Frederick Douglass Boulevard St. Nicholas houses. As I said, the 10-year-old was found beaten. Let me just read a little bit of the article real quick for you. It says, okay, police are questioning two family members after a 10-year-old boy was found dead and covered in bruises in his own living room in Harlem. All new tonight, the investigation into the death of the 10-year-old boy found with bruises all over his body. Good evening, and everyone, from Sandra Bookman. Okay, that's the article. Let me see what else they got up here about it. They're basically saying, the two family members of that boy are being questioned inside the 32nd precinct here. Police tell us that those family members were inside the apartment when the police arrived. Police say around 2:20 this afternoon, they got a call to respond to a possible assault inside the apartment on 134th Street in Harlem. Police say they found a 10-year-old boy unconscious, unresponsive on the living room floor. He was pronounced dead at Harlem Hospital. Police say the boy, who they are not yet identifying, was covered in trauma all over his body, old bruises, new bruises, as well as other types of trauma. Tomorrow afternoon, a community group called Street Corner Resources will hold a rally against this type of violence in response to the little boy's death. So that's the rally that they're having right now. If you want to participate, please go out there and advocate so that our youth are not being harmed and killed out here. So once again, the community response rally for the death of the 10-year-old child is being held today, Sunday, March 7th, 2021 at 2 p.m. at 260 West 131st Street at the Frederick Douglass Boulevard, St. Nicholas houses. And another thing I want to highlight before I leave, there's a young girl that has also been missing for some time. Okay. So, okay, there's a missing teen. Her name is Christina Holton from St. Kitts. She was last seen February 15th, 2021. Her age is 12. She's 5 foot inches and 100 pounds. She was last seen wearing a black jacket, pink sweater, black sweatpants, and a black and orange sweater. If you see her, please contact Asia Gibson on Facebook. Her name is Asia Gibson on Facebook. Please contact her or call Crime Stoppers 1-800-577-TIPS or call 911. Please, if you see anything, you can hashtag her at Help Bring Christina Home Safe. Hashtag Help Bring Christina Home Safe. She has been missing for some time, and I still don't think that they found her. So please, if you do see her, contact Earth Asia Gibson on Facebook. So with that, I say peace and salute to everybody that came out. Salute to everybody who patched in and tapped in with us, and salute to everybody that taps in every week and calls in. So with that, I say peace. Peace.